I move that the question be now put.
I'll hear David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the issues that Part 1 of the bill addresses is updating the powers of the Security Intelligence Service in respect of new electronic technologies. And the one that I want to just spend a moment on is the inclusion of the power for electronic tracking. And Clause 5 of the bill says electronic tracking means the use of electronic means for the purpose of ascertaining the location or tracking the movement of a person or thing. I'm interested in the Minister's opinion whether he agrees with the Law Commission that in terms of the degree of intrusion upon civil liberties, we should be less concerned about electronic tracking than we should be about surveillance techniques like of cameras and recording devices. And I know that I've been sat on the Justice Select Committee and considering the Search and Surveillance Bill. We heard submissions from the Law Commission presented by Warren Young on behalf of the Law Commission, who expressed the view that as a society we should be less concerned about electronic tracking devices than we should be about other surveillance techniques in that they are less intrusive into the personal life or the personal business of the person under surveillance. And that seemed to me to be right, except that I wasn't completely convinced in that if a person was regularly going to another person's place that wasn't their wife, for example, or then that would be intrusive into the details of that person's personal life in a way that might concern them, given that they might think that they had a right to live their life privately. So that's a little issue that I wouldn't mind some clarification from the Minister upon, because if there is a difference in the intrusiveness of different methods of search and surveillance or different techniques, then maybe there's a need to have some different threshold applying to the different sorts of surveillance techniques that might be utilised. And it may well be that the Minister thinks that, well, if the police have these powers, then the Security Intelligence Service should be qualified to have them too, and that the proper oversight of the use or misuse of those powers is provided for by the Commissioner of Warrants and the Prime Minister. And I'd be interested in the Attorney's view on that also, because it does seem to me that we are lucky in New Zealand that we have a trustworthy judiciary. In fact, I don't know of another jurisdiction in the world that has a more trustworthy judiciary than New Zealand, which is not to say that overseas countries' judiciaries are not trustworthy, but I'm very trusting of the independence of our higher courts especially, and I do think that we have a tradition of impartiality and lack of bias and thoughtfulness amongst our higher judicial officers in New Zealand that is a very, very important part of the constitutional safeguard of our civil liberties. I, for example, preferred New Zealand's system to the American system, where there is more political involvement in the appointment of judges in an overtly political way. I know in the end someone has to appoint a judge, and in the end it has to be another branch of government, and therefore is generally a politician, and in our case the Attorney General. But we have a strong tradition in New Zealand of making non-partisan appointments to courts. As a consequence, we have non-partisan courts generally, and to the extent that that's possible, and we therefore have the benefit of a long tradition of judicial independence and a judiciary that we can rightly trust, I think, to be guardians of civil liberties and therefore guardians against inappropriate use of security and intelligence service powers. And I would like to hear from the Minister whether he agrees that underlying the controls or the controls that we have that underlie the way in which we control the Security Intelligence Service from misusing the powers that we have, Mr Chairman.
I'll call Keith Locke.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I just want to follow up from the previous speech of David